I think you just want to make sure that you are always positioning yourself in a way that people go, oh, if I have the need, this is the person I need to call.
Hey guys, welcome to another Real Estate First Friday. My name is Matt Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty, and excited to be with you. I'm joined by my co-EVP, Louis Fermin, and it has been somewhat of a long week. We literally just got in this chair like just a second ago. Today we have a special guest that we are going to be bringing on, so I'm going to bring him in kind of early. So we've got David Lewis, who is going to be joining us today, and we're going to be talking about a couple of different things just to set the stage. One, we're going to be talking about some holiday conversations, and so as you know, there's a lot of time where we're going to be social through the holiday period. Maybe you're going to holiday parties or you're just interacting with people that maybe you don't speak to as much. And always you get the question like, hey, how's the market, or how's real estate going? And there's always a thing is like, oh, real estate's best if you bought it yesterday. There's always like those catch phrases that are like just the generics, but that generally sounds pretty disingenuous. And so what we want to talk through today is really what's happening in the market, how to then explain to someone, our consumers, either sellers or our buyers, how to think about the market in today right now. Like, is it actually a good time to purchase with all the things that are happening? We hear the interest rates dropping, is it a good time to be doing real estate transactions? So we want to talk through the mechanics of that. And so David Lewis is going to be leading the way in that conversation. I didn't even ask you how you doing, man.
No, I'm doing great, man.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. But to your point, I mean, the power of messaging is huge inside of real estate. Sometimes we don't realize that when we put out broad messaging out there, that in one way we could attract one audience, but in the other way, we can disqualify another audience.
Right.
So there's, ways that we can communicate in a way that's, very neutral, that's maybe not necessarily emotional. And then we create hesitation in the eyes of certain individuals. And I think those are going to be some of the talking points that we're going to have convo with David with. So excited to jump right in.
Yeah. The thing for me is always like people want to put their own self-ambition ahead, right? So like if you're thinking about, is it a good time to sell? You're like, well, yes, I would love to sell a property right now, so, but we have to learn how to separate that conversation to give objective information so that the person can realize or come up with the strategy based on what their actual goal is. And so David Lewis, good morning. How are you?
What's up? Dude, can we talk about that intro video, the hype video? It was awesome.
We were like, that was actually a lot of that footage was when we were out in California, and we were doing a tour over there, and so Davey was out there and took some cool videos for us, and we repurposed that to create the intro for this. So
it's awesome. It's really great.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Okay, so today's topic, we want to kind of talk about what's happening in the marketplace. How do we then tell our either sellers or our buyers, if they're thinking about either buying or selling and they're nervous about what the conditions of the market is, how do we then turn that into a conversation that's easy for them to understand, that gives them the, objective view so that they can really decide whether it's the best decision for them? So I think we'll probably start there, and then we'll parlay into some additional things.
So Robert gives these amazing motivational Monday messages, and he has this ability to make us all want to run through a brick wall no matter what. But he's doing so in describing a challenging market. He's like, hey guys, rates are holding firm. They're still really high. But somehow he makes us all so excited about the market and the possibilities that we all want to run through a brick wall after. And I was thinking, how do we apply those universal messages to everyone? Because we also, while Robert is someone that we see as someone who's disseminating messages to us as agents to go out there and spread, we then become the person, the authoritative figure for the people in our world, the people who follow us on socials, the people who are our clients or potential clients or past clients. So how do we create messaging that keeps people equally as excited as they are informed in the face of anything that comes in the market? Right? High interest rate, seller's market, buyer's market. There's opportunity always. If you said the old adage is well, it's always a great time to buy real estate or whatever, that's cheesy, but how do we keep that momentum without being just cheesy,
Agreed. Yeah. And, that's the thing is like we get that question all the time. We even get it from, real estate agents. And then we certainly get it from our friends and family and just people who you run into. And I always just like to say, well, hey, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And like instead of just vomiting and be like, well, hey, interest rates are probably going to go down and inventory is going up and you want to get them before, like that's going to sound like too much. I think it's important to understand why are they asking that? Right? Like, are you thinking about upselling or downselling? Are you looking for investment properties? Because truthfully, in some of those things, it may be a better market for some than another. And maybe sometimes life takes over and then you just have to do the transaction regardless. But you want to be able to give that objective information so it doesn't seem like you're putting your ambitions of just wanting to sell a property or do a transaction over what really could be best for them. Now, if they have a need and they need to do it right now, yes, we're going to come up with the best strategy. And here's the pitfalls that we're going to avoid, or here's how we're going to navigate those things, or we're going to give you the objective information so that you can decide whether it makes sense for you to do it, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't alienate one side or another. And so that is, I think, super important. Yeah. So kind of what are your thoughts there? Like if someone's saying, hey, is it a good time for us to sell real estate? What do we go with in this conversation based on what's happening at the market level?
I mean, I think the overarching message is it's always a good time to buy or sell real estate. There's opportunities in every market if you're partnered with the right person who can help you find them. And then the follow-up question is, well, most importantly, what's making you ask the question? But side note, like when you're having, like we use the theme of a holiday party, right? Like you're at a holiday party, you're with people that trust you. Like you want to make sure that you're answering the question to Bob, who might be a potential buyer, but Larry next door might be a potential seller. Like Larry literally like standing like in the conversation too, listening in. So you want to make sure you're not leaning too heavily one way or the other. So talking about how the opportunities are abundant no matter what, and you have to kind of stay in that middle lane like we were talking about. So if someone asks you how's the market, and I think the question or the answer to the question is always going to be, well, the market is full of opportunity. Right. And then the follow-up question is, well, what's the most important to you? Like, what are you considering? Do you consider buying or are you considering selling? And then depending on how they answer that question, you can dig a little bit deeper. But I think just keeping it on opportunity, right? We know that generally speaking, people run towards pleasure or away from pain. So any of your answers have to be specifically around how am I going to keep you from avoiding pain? Or how am I going to drive you towards pleasure, right? And in that sense, it's like, how am I going to make a process streamlined? Or how am I going to save you the most amount of money? And that's kind of if you stick to those two things in regards to the market, generally speaking, you're going to give a positive outlook no matter what. So for example, like, let's talk about high interest rates, right? Like if someone says, well, I heard interest rate, how's the market? Oh, lots of opportunity. Oh, I heard interest rates were high. I know people have been saying that interest rates are high and I'm not disagreeing. But did you know at TLG Atlanta, we have access to exclusive partnerships that are getting our buyers 1 to 2 points off of their interest rates? Like always lead them in a way to show them the opportunity. And then that way, if you're saying that, if someone next door is listening or someone like in the conversation is listening and they're thinking about selling, and you can even pivot to that and go, and it actually provides really amazing opportunities for our sellers because while most buyers are only operating with what they think is high interest rates, the fact that we're able to pair them with lenders who can get them a little bit lower rates actually creates more opportunities for our sellers too. Could you believe it that while everyone is talking about how interest rates are high, that we're actually creating opportunities for our buyers and our sellers and they're both winning? Like just keeping it to where you're not disqualifying anybody within that initial conversation. And I think it's important to note too, we talked about the holiday party, we know the market is not without its challenges. We know that the market is down. We're all waiting for that boomsday as we've talked about. But at the same time, even when you're talking to people who are your friends and family that you're close, you got to keep your guard up. Like you got to keep that shield up. You got to keep that shield of positivity because you might go into man, it's tough. It's been a dogfight. It's been awful. But I think we can agree that when we first started in real estate, a lot of the people that we sold houses to are the people that would be at that party. There are our friends and family. So you want to make sure that even in a moment of down or weakness, that you don't find yourself complaining away or talking about the challenges in a way that would keep someone from entering the market. So it's really just about thinking about the over optimistic side of things.
I was just going to share, I mean, that's such a great point, because there are a lot of customers who may be like on the fence of figuring out, am I going to do this or not? And all it takes is that little bit of pessimistic that's coming from you as somebody who maybe they looked at you as the expert, as the person in the market, and that little bit of pessimistic may just drive them into the other direction because you overly shared your emotions or your subjective, emotions surrounding the circumstances to that individual. So it could have very drastic implications when you do take those types of approaches. And then you also were sharing in regards to like the high interest rate dynamic. I would encourage you guys, if you did not watch Motivational Monday this last Monday, you heard Robert talk about how the mortgage is one of the strongest financial instruments that exists for a consumer, where you have the unilateral decision to always refinance it down in the event that interest rates do go down. But if interest rates do tend to go up, because nobody knows which way it's going to go, they can always go higher, they could possibly go lower, you at least lock it into the rate in which you are in today. So if you want to kind of revisit that messaging, Robert did an amazing job on Monday Motivational this last week to drive that messaging home.
To your point, like he said, is that, it is the most, I guess, favorable financial instrument for consumers, which is that if things get worse, then you're already locked in. If things get better, you take advantage of the new sale. It's like hey, I'm going to buy it today, and if it goes on sale for the next 30 days, I get the new lower price. Like, you have that indefinitely. And that's really important to think about when you're having a conversation when someone's saying, hey, I've got this life event. I'm thinking, does it make sense for me to do a real estate transaction right now? You've got this lever to say, well, hey, maybe right now the interest rates are not as low as they have been, but you always have the ability to take advantage of it should they trend down again. But we do know that overall, real estate continues to become more valuable over time. And while you may have some small dips here and there, some little bit of retracement in pricing, at the end of the day, everything that sold 10 years ago is going to be more expensive today. So it's still going to cost you, to wait. And so I like that thought process. But getting back to like what you were talking about, David, as well, too, around the neutral conversation around that positivity, which is that sometimes when we are having a tough time, we want to say like, oh my God, like the market sucks. And you want to, like, no one wants to work with someone who's struggling. Like, it's just the reality of it, right? Like, and that's why people are always like, oh, I'm so busy. They try to manufacture that they're so busy. That's cool too. Well, I mean, I'm not saying don't be authentic. But what I am saying is that no one wants to see someone who business is not going their direction, because it's going to usually be correlated to a direct reflection of your skill set. Yeah. And may not be, but that's how we're going to think about it, right? Yeah. Like, oh, you're not very good at your job. That's why you're struggling. Oh, no, I'm not very. It's not that I'm not very good at my job. It's just that the market's very difficult, and we came from this amount of transactions. There's all these qualifying things you would have to say, but likely you're not going to say that if you are just talking about your struggles with how the market sucks. And so again, that's just something that I always think about. Like, when you give them that objective information, where you're giving them that information that they can use for themselves to make the decision, try to pull all personal struggles outside of that, because it normally taints you.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, this is what we do. I mean, we're experiencing this day in and day out, week after week, the dynamics that are happening inside of the industry. So we somewhat tend to become like somewhat immune, but it still emotionally affects us. But we still think it's okay, that it's not going to like throw us off the edge by making those expressions. But to the consumer, I mean, they do this once every, maybe ever, once every 5, 10 years, 15 years. And they may not be paying attention to these industry dynamics when they're not in the game of purchasing a house or selling a house. But when they are, this is brand new to them. So hearing those, unneutral kind of positions that are very much driven by emotion could create, again, those hesitations to proceed. And what are some of those emotional kind of talks? Like, hey, the market is terrible, or things that drive emotion. Here's what I would recommend. And we've given the example at the holiday party, right? It's like, hey, somebody could be eavesdropping, which is such a great point. For every buyer, there's a seller. And if we're too heavy on messaging on the buyer side, all you're going to do is either deflect a possible seller and vice versa. I would recommend, like, audit whatever marketing you have out there, maybe on social media, that may not be on neutral grounds. Are we driving messaging out there in a social space, or from a newsletter perspective, or from a direct mail perspective, that is not cater to the total addressable market, which is both buyers and sellers. Do we have messaging that's a little too heavy on one side? And yes, you may want to focus your business on that side of the portfolio, but if you are out there wanting to have a diversified clientele base, you need to have that neutral messaging.
Yeah. One other thing I would like to say, and then Dave, I want to throw it back to you, is that, like you just said a minute ago, like someone is not really paying attention. Like they'll start to pay attention once they have a need, but they're not paying attention like how we are every single day. And when we came in here, John Powell was saying to you, hey man, did you see what happened this last week? What you talking about your team, the baseball hat that you're wearing. And just this last week, there's been so many moves that you weren't even aware of.
Because I've had my head in the sand working on other stuff.
Correct.
And I've totally tuned out.
Exactly. So if you think about that from a perspective of like, okay, someone, once they buy a house, they're probably going to still search around for, just to see what is out there. We all do that for a couple of months. And then after that, there's going to be a several year period where they're not looking at the real estate market at all. And then they're going to get close to where they are starting to have a need again, and they get curious. And there's going to be a couple year gap where they're really not paying attention to the market. And that's generally where they're going to then, you're going to get that C-level client where they're engaging you for the first time. So if you just think about that process, like, hey, I was really interested in real estate. I knew a lot about it at the time. I took a several year gap. I'm becoming curious again. Now I'm going to engage with someone, right? Like that is they're going to be their kind of, I guess, their level of understanding of the market, right? They're not like how every single week we're looking at interest rates. We're looking at what's happening at the Fed. We're seeing if they're, what's happening at the 10-year. We're looking at inventory. We're doing all these things to constantly stay experts at the field, but we forget that the consumer 9 times out of 10 does not have anywhere close to that level of information. And so that's why it's so important for you to be able to give them a neutral look through your expertise on what's happening in the market.
Because now you control the narrative. Nothing else has influenced them because
Correct.
they're not in that business. They're not in that game.
Strong point.
Yeah. Remember, too, is we're unique in this industry that, like, and if you guys are hearing this for the first time, I'm sorry if it's shocking, but you're always interviewing for your next job. Every social media post, every public appearance, every time you go out and you have any conversation with anyone, because we operate as like business owners, but we operate as like, generally we operate as like the one employee of our business or the main employee of our business or the focal point of our business. Every social media post, every conversation at a party, every time you go out is you interviewing for a job. Remember that you have to keep it between those lines that we're talking about. And I would even say, we were talking about, people diving back into the market or diving out. I honestly think that people don't care about the market. Like we, as real estate professionals, we care about the market. And I'm not saying they don't care about the market at all. They specifically care about how the market impacts them. They're not asking when they go, how's the market? They're not going, oh, please give me a 10-minute synopsis on the overall economic, status of real estate. What they're saying is, can I make money? Can I lose money? Is it going to be a pain in the butt to sell my house, or is it going to be easy? And you have to remember that that's what people actually care about. So making sure that and going back to the interview piece, like we talk about, I taught this thing at FallCon where we talked about the difference between being an agent or the agent. We always want to position ourselves as the agent. So you're in that holiday party. Someone's like, I heard the market's rough. And you go, I've heard it's rough for a lot of agents out there. But here at TLG Atlanta, we've honestly had a different experience. I've been saving my buyers money and making my sellers cash hand over foot. Like it's been wild, right? So I think you just want to make sure that you are always positioning yourself in a way that people go, oh, if I have the need, this is the person I need to call. It's different for David. It's different for TLG Atlanta. Louis Fermin has all the secrets. That's the thing that you want to make sure, because every conversation is an interview. And going back to the market dynamics, it's not that people don't want to know, but when we use terms like days on market or sales price to original list price, people don't care about that. We have to take it a step further and go, well, this is what it means for you. This is what it means for you as a seller. This is what it means for you as a buyer. And keep it focused around those things, because people really only want to know how's it going to impact them. So if you take anything away from these conversations at the holiday party or even a social media post, every social media post is an interview. Make sure you're letting everyone in the room know that you're the agent, right? And that things are different for you and that things are great for all of your clients. And then make sure that you're helping to explain things in a way, that really, really registers and, with them and what they're looking for. So if someone says, how's the market? And you go, well, I've heard some agents are struggling, but it's a little bit different for us. We've actually been seeing some really great success for our clients, right? I've been able to save my buyers a lot of money on the home, taking advantage of interest rate volatility and, a little bit of sellers willing to negotiate. On the flip side, that seller negotiation has actually worked out for my sellers. Question for you, what does that mean for you? Like if I was able to save you a lot of money selling your house or make you a lot of money, I was able to save you a lot of money buying your house, like would one of those register for you? Taking it the step further to go like double down, because I generally think people don't ask how's the market without some sort of intention behind it. They want to know for a reason.
100%. Yeah, that's I think that's a great point. One additional thing like I would like to throw in here just kind of before we wrap this full thing up is that when you think about when was the last time that you did a transaction for somebody that you didn't save them money if you helped them purchase, like you didn't negotiate something for them, like you just gave the seller exactly what they wanted and like, right? And or the last time that you represented as a seller and you just whatever offer came in, you just said, okay, we'll accept it. Like, right? Like we are doing the function. And so being proud about what you're doing, you may not save everybody $100,000. Like, right? That's not realistic, but you are always adding value to the transaction. And that has to be alive when you're just talking about, hey, like you said, what's happening in the market? Well, you're asking this because you're going to be doing one of three things, either buying, selling, or both, right? So I need to make sure that you understand that I can solve or help add value to any one of those three scenarios. And so that has to be alive in the way that I communicate my messaging. And then to David's point, the deeper questions that you ask, the more targeted you can make that information, because ultimately they're asking to solve an answer that they want to know, right? Like, is it going to be difficult for me to sell? Is it going to be easy for me to buy? Like how is it going to impact me?
Yeah. And don't assume that your customer knows how to connect the dots. Right. Going to that example of average days on market, like when we hear that term, like we know what that means, right? Like if there's average days on market are above par relative to where it was before, then there's probably a cool down in the market and we have opportunities to negotiate prices. If we're on the buyer side and on the seller side, we need to set expectations that we may get whacked or we may have to go down a little bit, in order to move it if our timelines of move. But we understand that. Right. Don't assume that the customer understands it. So when we're giving them these data points that exist in the industry, hey, the average days on market right now are 50% relative to where they were 6 months ago. The buyer, the seller, they're going to sit there like, what does that truly even mean? Right. Like it sounds good or bad, I guess, but why not give them that little extra more? Show them that you are the expert. Like those little levels of consultations go such a long way when you're communicating and messaging with your customer.
Yeah, agree.
Don't give them a math problem. Right? Like we always say, don't make them do long division to figure out what you're talking about. Be like, do you like more money? I can get you more money, because that's like the universal thing to understand, right? Like don't make them have to like I said, long division to figure out what you're actually trying to say.
That's 100% right. And you got to remember, the motivation for most people is going to be one, you're either going to make the transaction easier for me, you're going to help me avoid risk, or two, you're going to help me make more money. Like it's really going to be one of those buckets, right? It's not really much outside of that. And maybe sometimes there's a timing piece or there's a convenience piece. There's some little things that will sprinkle, but at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those major buckets. Okay, so real quick, kind of last question before we wrap up, David, which is that I know that each market's a little bit different. We've seen some inventory start to increase here locally. Our conversation is starting to change. We're starting to see transactions starting to go up. We've seen tons of agents, particularly with LPT actually, who have done more transactions in 2025 than previous years, even when things were good. And we can attribute that to the tools and the education and the success of, kind of all that being in one ecosystem. But for you, is there anything that you find that is working for you to help expand your business? I know that you've done very well this year. So is there anything that you are doing that is expanding your business or messaging that you feel is working right now?
It's going back to those one-on-one conversations. So, like we talked, we've been living in the holiday party example because of the time of year. But, if someone does ask you, how's the market? Look, you're not going to pull out the box at the holiday party. I mean, I guess you could, right? And take them through a whole listing presentation. But if someone gives you a little bit of an in, take it and go, hey, you probably don't want to talk about it for long. There are opportunities in the market. Do you have time next week for us to discuss it? So I think what I've seen the biggest difference this year is it requires an opportunistic view. Like you've got to be, if someone gives you any sort of inclination they want to buy or sell, you need to jump all over it. At the holiday party, book a coffee for the next week, book a coffee for the next year. Like if someone in passing asks you about the market, like try to get time for a one-on-one so you can dig deeper, because with the market being down in such a different percentage from previous years, you have to be more hand-to-hand combat opportunistic. So like if anyone gives you any sort of inkling of like interest in the market, like you need to take them into a full-on consultation as fast as you can to dig deeper, no matter what the setting is, right? Set that next appointment, set that next meeting. I think that's been the biggest difference is like it's tough out there and we really have to make sure that we are taking advantage of every opportunity. Because if someone asks, they have a reason for asking. If someone walks into an open house that you're hosting, they have a reason for leaving their house, going into a stranger's house, driving down the street. Like it's not, I'm just looking, right? Oh, I'm just a neighbor. I was nosy. The nosy neighbor hasn't, like everyone, and you just have to really, really dig deep to find it. What is that motivation that's driving them there? Because otherwise they're going to call somebody else.
Two skill sets to definitely take away from that last monologue. Number one, it's being able to recognize when a real estate conversation is about to percolate, when you are just having regular dialogues with individuals. Because number two, that creates the opening for you to go through that card to play, which is position yourself at that as that expert. Don't lose those opportunities. You know, if these conversations start percolating inside of a Christmas party or in some type of gathering or some type of social event that's not oriented with real estate, but it's starting to come out, play that card. And for some of you who may not be good at being spontaneous, like have it scripted. Like, hey, if I recognize that there's some type of real estate conversation that's arising, I need to be able to plant my seed. And I need to be able to water my seed, and I need to be able to harvest the dirt. Like I need to be able to take that person through it, because we don't know what that ultimate person's intention is. What if they know somebody that wants to buy or sell a house? And because of that harvesting of the soil, planting the seed, watering the seed, it creates a dynamic where now I'm creating a referral. You know, maybe that's an individual that's been in the thoughts of buying or selling a house. But if you don't extract that opportunity, you'll never be afforded that ability to even, you know, have that opportunity. And then second, you have to recognize it, right? You have to recognize that this is happening in front of you.
One of the things that I really want you to take away as you're thinking about what you heard today, which is, are you accurately identifying the opportunities that come to your way that are just in the way of a casual conversation? Like, do we take that opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to understand how to interface to give you what you need right now, but then take it a step further and maybe set a more formal time for us to discuss while you're asking to uncover that need? Like, are we looking at those opportunities that way? And I know that, you know, sometimes we shy away from those things because we don't want to sound like we're commission brat, or you don't want to sound like you're trying to pounce on every, like, you know, we build up all these things in our mind as to why we don't want to do that. But I would really encourage you to think about, it's really your approach to how that conversation is had, which is what will give someone the ick or not, right? Like if you are genuinely answering someone's question in a way that uncovers their needs and allows you to set a future conversation so you can dig a little bit deeper, that's a skillful person. If someone says, hey, I thought about this house, and you ran over there and you're like, hey, can I sign my you know, like you go extreme, like, right, that's going to be not the thing to do. But again, it's about positioning yourself in a way to allow the conversation to develop naturally without, you know, being inauthentic or doing anything that is, you know, lying about your circumstances or your success or anything like that. It's just about understanding how to objectively answer the question and uncover the need as to why they're asking, so that you can then have a future opportunity to serve that need for them. So with that being said, I want you to think about, if you're at a holiday party this weekend, have your eyes and ears open, listen for that little spark, and have that conversation in the most authentic and honest way. So I hope you have a blessed and prosperous weekend. We'll see you for Motivational Monday, where Robert will be breaking down the market and talking about the final things that you should be doing in 2025. We were trying to get to that last Monday, did not get a chance because we went a little bit deeper on the market update, but we will circle back around for that this Monday. So hope to see you guys there, and have a great weekend.